Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Silicon Insider podcast. I did that backwards, but Scott's first priority. So,
Well, hello.
hello. How are you?
I'm good. Knee deep in the earnings and everything that's followed. My goodness.
And you were at SFO today?
Yeah, tracking what could be, and by the time you're listening to this, some delays. San Francisco and Oakland in the Bay Area, two of the airports on the FAA list of the 40 that will see slowdowns over the next week or so.
Yeah, that's right. That was my first item here. The FAA announced today of that list of 40 airports that we most impacted by the government shutdown. And SFO is one of them. Oakland is another, but Bonetta is not currently.
Right.
But it's bound to have some kind of impact on Silicon Valley operations.
Yeah, I
'Cause
mean, San Francisco is a major flyer for tech companies and executives, and it will be something that people will see day by day. Each of the percentage of delayed flights will get higher and higher. So if this continues to last for a while, yeah, it will be both personal and business travel. I think that will be affected quite a bit.
yeah, and also components, they're being brought in from the Far East in volume. Uh, we saw Apple do a quick run of a bunch of devices one point in years past. One of the companies I follow, it has all of its devices manufactured in China and shipped over by plane, and they're supposed to get a delivery of 50 prototypes, and we'll see if that even happens for a while. So, I mean, it could have a major impact if this thing keeps going.
Right. I mean, we're so dependent on bringing things in, whether people or products, and it's just something we do. I often think of that Thomas Friedman line, that the flat Earth, and we really do live in that kind of a thing, and we're just so dependent on things being able to travel and ship, at a moment's notice. And if that slows down, right, it won't just be people that will notice; it will be companies that will notice as well.
Yeah, I think it was Peter Zeihan, I think, who pointed out that to manufacture one component with a big chip inside, it goes to 300 different vendors around the world. So if any of those things gets blocked, this could be a serious thing.
Right.
Okay, next. Google. This is a headline. Google may be Nvidia's biggest rival in chips, and now it's upping its game. I thought Nvidia's biggest rival in chips was AMD. You don't think of Google as being a chip company, but it's a seventh generation TPU chip is custom built to handle tasks as large scale AI model training and high volume AI inference. Uh, did you know that about Google?
Yeah, Google is, as the kids like to say, kind of getting its flowers these days. It's a really interesting time for Google when just a few months ago, people were saying the AI revolution would destroy Google because it's so dependent on traditional search. But Google has made a move to not only get into the sort of pantheon of AI companies, but also chip companies. You got to give them credit for the Android operating system. They're selling a ton of phones. People are reliant on their devices, and they just seem to hit on everything that they do, with rare exception. And look at their stock value, and they're just killing it right now as not a casualty of the AI boom, but a beneficiary of it. And I don't think a lot of people thought that that would happen.
Yeah, I don't think many people, when they were asked what Google did and Google's future, would have said a hardware company. And yet it's knocking things down. I mean, uh, these chips are purpose built for the most demanding loads, Google said, including training and reinforcement learning for large scale AI models and high volume AI inference with low latency. So these things are fast and they're powerful. You think they can compete with Nvidia? I mean, Nvidia is it's the most valuable company on earth, and it only does these AI chips. You think Google as a sidelight can actually compete with Nvidia?
I mean, it's not doing just chips and it does so much more. But I think one thing about NVIDIA's strength and size is that even NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang has admitted we're booked up for a while. So it
Yeah.
behooves a lot of other companies that are dependent on chips to look beyond NVIDIA simply because they need to get chips fast. NVIDIA can only crank out so many, even as the leader. And so that's why you're seeing the AMDs and the Googles and the Broadcoms and some of the other companies do really well because they are maybe second stringing it, but they're doing well, and people need an alternative to the big guy right now.
So why doesn't Nvidia sign up another company as a second source just to keep market share?
Well, I mean, look at some of the investments that they're making in these companies that might have been looked at as competitors in the AI marketplace. Instead, the NVIDIA economy is strengthening them, almost as if to say, if you win, we all make money. And it's less of a dog eat dog world and more of a, I don't know, almost a shared competition kind of thing. And NVIDIA's on top, and it's perhaps spending the most money this side of OpenAI, but it's really doing it to, I think, strengthen the whole AI movement. And if that movement is strengthened, NVIDIA does well for years and years.
Yeah, well, Nvidia is kind of topped out right now on design wins, isn't it? I mean, it can't service many more companies anytime in the next few years.
Right. Oh, and that's why I think what it's doing is reaching out to other companies. I mean, it made that plea recently saying, hey, China might get ahead of us, so we have to make more chips and we have to do better. That's sort of saying, America needs to do well. And I think if America does well and can sell chips to China, well, who's a beneficiary of that? NVIDIA is a beneficiary of that.
So, do you have any updates on Intel?
Uh,
I mean, if they're in
no,
the game now, if they're in the game now, and the government's investing in them,
right.
where they stand?
I mean, they're standing a lot taller and more confidently than they were 6, 9, 12 months ago, and even beyond that. Their stock price is up near $40 again. They've got all this money in the bank from investors. They have government backing. NVIDIA's investing in them as well. So I think these are good times for Intel. What they will do with that money remains to be seen because remember, this is a company, and you'd have to go back a couple decades to say this is a company that did well with its money. It hasn't been for a long time. It's missed every big train in tech. And what happens this time, I don't know, but at least it has a little solid footing right now, either to screw up again or to do something well.
I mean, this company's recent history is one of zigging when the entire market and demand zags.
Right, right.
But it also helps to have the United States Treasury, you know, backing you up and keeping you from failing.
I mean, really, two investors in NVIDIA and the US government that are pretty good backers to have right now.
Yeah, well, speaking of trillion dollars, today the shareholders of Tesla voted to give Elon his pay package, $1 trillion.
I mean, that's the peak of it, yeah, and it's preposterous when you say it out loud. But
Yeah,
so was the last pay package.
yeah,
And then Tesla became a $1 trillion company. Musk became the richest person in the world. And what investor right now is arguing with that first pay package? I mean, there are activists that are saying it doesn't make sense. I get that. But shareholders have been riding that pay package all the way to the bank. And look at some of the, I mean, just crazy points that Tesla's market value has to get before these things kick in. Every $500 billion dollars for Musk to earn $1 trillion, they have to be somewhere above $8 trillion in market value. And that's one and a half NVIDIA's and then a little more. And this is Tesla. They sell cars and maybe someday, I don't know, robots, but they're not there yet. They're about $1.5 trillion, so far in market value.
yeah. Apparently, it's 12 tranches of payment, and he has to hit benchmarks on each one of those. And some of them look impossible. 50 billion in EBITDA, 2 trillion in market capitalization, 20 million cars delivered. I mean, okay, these a lot of these things seem impossible. 1 million robo taxis in operation, 1 million robots sold. It seems impossible that he can't possibly reach this. And then you go, well, it seemed impossible the last time too.
Right. And, if you look at someone like Larry Ellison, who's always had a large percentage of ownership in his company, when that company does really well, the person with the large ownership does really well. And that's sort of what this means for Musk. He wanted a percentage of Tesla. He whined very publicly, if I don't get this, I'm going to leave and it won't be enough and blah, blah, blah. But the bottom line is investors love what he's done and the money he's made for them. And this gives him a chance to make them even more money, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess the shareholders also bought the argument that he needs the ability to, swing that weight around and hold off, you know, competitive threats and investor threats and all that kind of stuff. I mean, nobody's ever gotten, demanded, independence forever, but he tried it and he passed. Also, one other thing I've noticed is he needs to reach 10 million full self-driving subscriptions. Okay, people are wary of the self-driving thing after the initial, you know, semi-failure of it. I'm hearing from some people, including I know one guy, he drove, he didn't drive, he self drove from Long Beach to his house in Mountain View without ever touching the steering wheel. And he says people are missing a bet now because it has a stigma attached to it. Do you think that Tesla can overcome that stigma and get 10 million subscriptions
I mean, I
himself?
think it's two different things. I don't think the stigma will ever go away. We're always going to be a little wary of this kind of thing. But 10 million is in reach depending on how many cars that get sold, because generally owners like the feature. They don't use it all the time, but they like it. And it's something that, if you have a few extra bucks, or I guess a few thousand extra bucks, you can pay for this, and they sign up and they subscribe and they use it when they want. And I know a lot of Tesla drivers who really do like it, even if they only use it part of the time. So again, all this depends on the overall value and the overall number of cars that are sold. And whatever the milestone is, again, it may seem crazy, but this is what Musk has been able to do in the past. And that's why he's so rich.
Well, we'll see. I mean, it's going to be an interesting 12 months, 24 months for him to pull this off. I mean, it's ambitious, but so's he.
Right.
Okay, Alphabet's X uh, company, which is their research and advanced innovation and all that. They're changing their business model to, instead of creating new operations for or new opportunities for Alphabet, for Google, they're going to start spinning out companies as independents and investing in them. And there's a company called Series X Capital, which has raised over 500 million. That's chump change, but it's a good start to invest in these companies as a venture capital firm to get them on their way. Uh, what do you think of Google X? I mean, I dealt with them on a couple of occasions. Actually, starting a company, I dealt with them. And I got the feeling that they spend a lot of money, but it doesn't spin off, it doesn't create as many new ventures as you would expect. In fact, I mean, even Teller, Astro Teller, I love that name. He's Edward Teller's son. He's in charge of the thing, and he says, our business is shooting down, killing new ideas because we're ruthless about, picking them apart. And some of those companies have actually left and are doing well. So, I question the whole Google X thing. I mean, the company I was up there with, they said, well, we've spent a year investigating the market, and then we're going to spend another few years investigating the market. We're in no hurry. And, when I encounter that, we're in no hurry in Silicon Valley, I question the validity of the whole idea.
Yeah, but then again, Google has such a track record with success of
Yeah,
its own thing and also the X wing. You got to love a good skunk works. I mean, it's been done in the Silicon Valley since the days of HP and Intel, certainly Microsoft. Google has done a lot with X. I mean, that's how we got Waymo, which on its own could be a company
right.
and very well made, spin off one day. And Google's investing prowess has already been, chronicled a lot. GV, Google Ventures, has been investing in companies and startups for a long time. This has not only been a powerhouse company, but really a powerhouse generator for startups. I think that's kind of what OpenAI wants to be, because we've seen it start to invest in other companies as well as grow its own market value. And Google is really a blueprint from that. I mean, Google is just going to be on the Mount Rushmore of Silicon Valley. And that's saying something, not only for its own innovation, because of search, maybe because of Android, but also, I mean, you look in the future and you see Waymos rolling around your town, wherever you live. And that's Google, that's GV, that's, the Google X. And I think we'll see more of that. It got into healthcare, certainly wearables. It's just such a monstrously successful company that has taken a lot of money and put it towards future endeavors. And sometimes when they cancel out, that's for the best, because maybe it wasn't meant to be, like the balloon thing.
I guess I'm a child of HP, and I watch them innovate regularly, new products, new markets and all that, all the way through the 50s and 60s and 70s. And I look at Google X and I can't help feeling it's like General Electric, where they just throw $1 billion, at medical, and then it disappears. Uh, that
Possibly, but the alternative to that.
But it's like a university campus when you go up there in Redwood, in Belmont or wherever the hell it is, where everybody's not in a hurry. There's no rush. It's like, okay, is this the future?
No, but you bring up a great point, but I would say the flip side of that, and let's say I call myself a child of Yahoo, and their problem was they didn't take things when the getting was good and put it towards the future. And though they just flamed out. And I don't see Google doing that, because look at its massive investments in things like self-driving and phones and, AI. These are all things that Yahoo should have been doing and didn't. And that's why we don't really have a Yahoo much. But why Google sees a bright future, and it really is putting its money where its dreams are. And I think that's a great way to keep a company alive and vibrant.
Yeah, and they've made a lot out of, every employee dedicate as a is expected to dedicate its time to a fraction of its day to this, to new ideas. I haven't seen many come out of Google itself that were successful, but I will agree that Google X every once in a while, hits a double at least, and once a decade a home run. So okay, Microsoft, freed from relying on OpenAI, joins the race for superintelligence. So Microsoft is saying that, you know, everyone noticed that Microsoft was one of the centerpiece investors of OpenAI, and now it's pulled away. And it has a chief named Mustafa Suleiman, and one of the things he wants, and this is like a red flag. I don't know if it's a blue flag or a red flag, but he says he wants to ensure that their AI serves humanity. That's going to be one of those things. When Google went public and they do no harm, you know, this guy, I'm sure he's sincere, but that may come back to haunt Microsoft, that it is to serve humanity. Microsoft doesn't have a history of serving humanity. Maybe this is a new age But I think that reality will assert itself, and they'll become as, you know, opportunistic as everybody else, and that's my fear. I'd love for them to serve humanity in positive ways, but I remain to be convinced.
Yeah, we've heard that time and time again through the decades from tech companies. And look, if tech companies really wanted to serve humanity, they would take a big chunk of their stock, and I mean billions and billions of dollars of it, and donate it to organizations that actually do serve humanity. And that's how they can really help humanity. Build housing, do what Bill Gates does in third world countries. Help humanity. Don't just talk about it and then build things that actually hurt the environment or, cause young people stress.
Yeah.
Really, there are ways to help humanity, especially when you have that much money, and goodwill. Put them together. Don't make them separate. Put them together and say, we're going to take all this money and give it to people who actually help humanity while we do the one thing that tech companies are good at, which is building value and innovating and making money.
You know what my recipe is for spreading wealth from all these companies and making the world more fair? Let individuals own their data
That too. That's good.
and have companies be forced to buy the data from them through an exchange or on the market or bid for it. But this would enable people to actually have a stake in, anything that's made from this stuff, any way it's used, and it would spread across all of humanity. And I think that would be a good thing, and it would be the fairest thing you could imagine, and it would actually stop the exploitation of individuals because they have no control over their data. And to make companies honest about it, that'd be a quick way to do it.
Agreed. That's a great idea. And maybe
Okay.
an idea whose time will eventually come because people will demand it.
Yes, I think they should. I mean, we're already seeing it with AI that writers, they see their quotes and their creations being used to educate AI, and they're not getting a piece of it. And there's that big lawsuit now, and we'll see if that has any kind of precedent. So that's it for now, folks. You can find us on Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcast, and YouTube. You can see Scott on Facebook and X, and of course, almost every weeknight on NBC Bay Area. We'll see you next week. Bye bye.